friends. This is Michael Vanderpool in the country of Georgia, the capital city, Tbilisi. And we'll make a second video here. I'm trying to get my way over to a park where I can sit and finish this video. There is some songbirds out here, just beautiful. It's feeling like spring, except today's a little cold and rainy, so yesterday was warm, sunshine. Small automobile repair shop with some, looks like change tires, change oil. My father and grandfather had a gas service station, auto mechanics repair, muffler repair, tire change oil. They did that for, I don't know if it was 13 years or more. I can't remember the number on that. I'd have to think. But I was very little when he was doing that, and spent a lot of time in auto mechanics garage growing up. So around the tools, around the customers, around the cars. So anyway, that's I just walked past the auto repair shop there. Now, this live broadcast is not showing anyone viewing, and I don't see any. I see one view now, but earlier no views. So I'll have to assume that, like last time, I think there were 22 views when I shut it off. I couldn't tell that there was maybe but 4 people, but there was actually 22 views according to the view count here on the tablet, on the screen from Facebook Live video feed. There's a lot of songbirds. You can still hear them as I approach the park. What is interesting is that on this very street, I told the story in one previous video about how I went to the police here in Tbilisi and I filed a police report against this Freemason Iraqi for a threat of physical assault. And then I had an interpreter there, a woman that met me, and she introduced herself with the Georgian Ministry of Internal Affairs. And that was in June of 2016. So here it is, fast forward to September 2017. So that's just last autumn, early fall here. And I'm walking down this street in that September, and here she is. She's walking diagonally toward me, and she's got her mirrored sunglasses on. You know, it reminded me of that TV series Miami Vice, right, where the cops in Florida are wearing the mirrored sunglasses, and she's, or California Patrol was really young, used to see that TV series about the California Highway Patrol. So here she comes, walking across the street with her mirrored sunglasses, and diagonally right to me. And because I had been posting about the story about that, which I mentioned before back in June, on Facebook. So I figured maybe that's why she'd come out to find me. But the first thing she asked was, she said, listen, she goes, how long have you been here? And I said, I don't know, it was either June or July. I wasn't really thinking about when I had got here. And I said, no, I said, I think it was July. So she wanted to know exactly how long I'd been here in Georgia. After that, there was a false report filed in the state of Missouri against me on a medical insurance issue there, stating that I'd been outside the country for more than 3 months, which was a lie. It was a false report. But they had wanted me, eventually they wanted me to come home to prove residency, either keep that insurance or have to reapply for that insurance based on residency issue. So what also she had asked for, somebody had just, through the internet, had just gotten astrology from me. And I wondered if they, because they've done this before, the Freemason here said they see everything, they know everything, and he asked me questions once about things on magic that only someone would know if they have direct access to one particular person that I chat with who I've actually done Kabbalistic evocational magic with in Missouri. Now, she's now in Florida, and she's the moderator or the administrator of a group that I'm a part of on Facebook, which on a Marshall Police Department, Marshall PD stop in Indian Foothills Park about a year or so ago, they had detained me and kept me in handcuffs for about 38 minutes or so. And I have a recording of this, audio recording, of about most of the encounter. But the first part of the encounter I didn't record because the cop came up to me and asked me some questions, asked me if I had a YouTube channel, asked me if I was a part of any secret groups on Facebook or private groups. And here I am, I'm just out at the park, and I'm on jet lag. So for them, it's like, why is this guy up at 2 a.m. at the city park? For me, it's like, I just flew over from Georgia or from Italy or from, in that case, it was Germany or Holland. Wherever I stopped before I come home sometimes and fly back and forth. So I'm up because there's issues of jet lag, right? I'm on a completely different time zone. So what happens is, and this is in Marshall, Missouri, Indian Foothills Park, they detain me for 38 minutes because they find quartz crystals that a friend gave me because he's in Arkansas now, and that's literally where they dig them up. And that's what he does. It's one of the things, he's a drummer. He's a badass jazz musician. He's an incredible drummer. His name is Jay Buck. And he gave me these crystals. And they're in my the father's work truck. And I'm out there at the shelter at the park, like I'm in a park right now, here in Tbilisi. And they're asking me all these questions, like, is that your truck? And I'm like, no, sir, that's not my truck. Well, how did you get here? I said, look, I've got a lawyer. Here's my card, legal shield. And I said, I would not like to answer any more questions. You can call my lawyer. Well, how did you get here? I said I'm not interested in answering any more questions. Anyway, they kept me there for about 48 minutes total, but it was 38 minutes. And I called Arthur Benson in Kansas City, and he said it was a violation of, he said it was improper conduct, and that I could write the chief of police, it's Mike Donnell, and tell him about it, but it was improper conduct. And they said it took all that time, something like 38 minutes or so, to test the quartz crystals from Arkansas for meth. They thought maybe it's meth rocks. Well, anyway, I set that to private on YouTube. But what the point I'm making about that is that they had asked me about these secret groups on Facebook, these private groups. They had mentioned my YouTube channel, and it was an unusual violation of constitutional rights and improper conduct, according to Arthur Benson, because they continued to question me after that, even though I said I would rather you call my lawyer. I don't want to answer any more questions. So what happened here, just up the street, when this Tamuna Samkaradze stops me, I had wondered if they'd seen my internet activity, because someone had just got an astrology reading from me, and it was a life reading, it was a huge reading. And here she was the very next day, stopping me on the street, and I get a false report filed against me in Missouri for the exact thing she asked me about, which is how long I'd been here, and it said I'd been here 3 months when I'd actually only been here 2 months. So then she asked me for this astrology. She says, listen, can you give me, I've seen some of your predictions on Facebook. This was after the almost war in Georgia and the 11 areas that were burning with forest fires, and it was happening in the U.S. too later. And it got very little coverage, I think, in the U.S. media as far as the forest fires in America. So I believe it to be climate change. A lot of people here had thought maybe it was Russian sabotage. Others assume purely that it's just a part of ongoing extremes in climate change, which we will continue to have to deal with as a world, as a people. So, as humanity on this planet at this time in history, because we've done quite a lot to mess it up and bring it on ourselves. So, what happens is I made this prediction. Here it is, September. It's after that period of time. August, the end of August is where all those fires were happening here in Georgia. Part of my prediction posted back, and I think it was January, but I predicted it years before too. But I got more specific as we approached that time, and I said there could be great natural disasters. Probable or possible war or great natural disasters. And the natural disasters happened, and there's 11 areas of massive areas of forests on fire here in Georgia. But also, as far as the almost or probable war, when I landed down here in July, a guy told me, who had a congressional contact and who said he worked against fighting terrorism, like Boko Haram in Northern Africa and so on. He offered me U.S. intelligence contact if I wanted. I said, no, I don't need that right now. And because he said there was about 16 to 25,000 Russian troops in, I think, South Ossetia, heavy military equipment, putting down the heavy roads, and more, maybe even more military bases. I'm not sure about that point, but he did mention all this heavy military equipment and the pavement put down heavier roads, and offered me the U.S. intelligence contact. So later I had the chance to go to the Noble Partner 2017 multinational military exercises here and make the films. And I think that's very important because in the first minute or two of the closing event, the final day, there was U.S. Embassy Deputy Chief of Mission Elizabeth Rood, who in 45 seconds, man, she gave a perfect presentation on the importance of Georgia's security link, military security link, because of their participation being the largest non-NATO contributor to the ISAF mission, and often fighting shoulder to shoulder, side by side with U.S. military, and so on. So this was a pleasure for me to see, because that's something I've been posting about on Facebook for at least a year or two before that, in that concise, short, simple way. That was awesome. That helped with my purpose, which was supporting the American Georgian Defense related project, right? So there we go. So I'm gonna have to go under a tree because it's raining now. Some people over there kissing too, so I kind of calm my voice down. On the bench there, kissing each other. Used to get arrested for that shit here a few years back. They made it illegal. You can't kiss in public back then. I don't know if it's what the status is now, but my former fiance and I, we were down at the Gladiani shopping mall. She was working in an electronics store. We'd get in the elevator. She loved riding the elevator because that's where we would kiss. Sometimes in Wendy's, you had to be careful in Wendy's but sometimes I think she was looking over at the staff people there in Dunkin's or Wendy's, because I think she actually was trying to show off a little bit without showing off. Did to be real careful about that. Isn't that weird? You're in a society where some years ago it was illegal to kiss in public. Strange. The whole thing. I'll stop with this topic. Back to secret police. So up the street, just about 5 minutes walk from here, 7 minutes walk from here. I'd shown in a previous live video. Tamuna Samkaradze comes up, like I said, day before. Somebody got a huge astrology reading from me. Huge. Life reading, I call it. Full life reading. Because it incorporates Vedic life predictions, Magi astrology, chart reading, transits and progressions, looking ahead, predictions. It encompasses a quick 15 or 20 minute view of my interpretation and my experience with fixed stars astrology, the fixed stars chart, and then maybe a touch of Western astrology. So that's a lot of work, and that can be 1 to 2 hours minimum in audio, let alone extra study and text work, chart, email, recording, all that. So she wanted an astrology reading, and could she get a discount? And I put all this chat and posted it on Facebook, the whole chat. because she had mocked me back in June about the magic. Because there's one technique that I gave Kate and taught Kate Latsunishvili, my former fiance. And it's a simple technique based on the concept that in every thought is mathematics. In the mind, thinking is based on math. And because the thoughts are based on mathematics, the ancient Vedic text is actually called Kabbalah or Kabbalistic. But in truth, Chiro got these methods in the Book of Numbers back from the ancient Vedic texts in India. So, what it is very simple. If you're thinking on a problem or a situation or something, you think about it, you ask yourself this question about it or this topic, and then you write down a number, 1 through 9. 9 numbers, 1 through 9. So maybe you're thinking about, for example, how do I come up with the money to fix my car? Or where did I lose my keys? Because there's 2 sets of Kabbalistic keys or answers based on the number you get by adding up the 9 different numbers, 1 through 9 that you come up with, and then adding a 3 at the end. And that number key is a Kabbalistic key to either divining what you're thinking about, a solution or a connection or a subject to what you're thinking about. And it's usually about 10 words or so that are associated with that thought, that solution, that question, that answer to that question. Or it's where an item is that is lost or hidden. Real life story, and I have a video already up on this Kabbalistic topic on YouTube. We used this one time because we really did lose the keys to a truck. You know, my family would have a couple of work trucks or trucks and cars, and there was used to be a Jeep. That was my stepmother's Jeep and so on. But anyway, we had a lot of vehicles around, and we switch off because maybe we're picking something up, dropping something off, or doing something. You know, you have farms, you got rental properties, whatever. So we lost the key, and my dad couldn't find it. I couldn't find it, so I used this technique, and it said near the stable. Like, stable? Well, that's a horse. Well, there's a barn that used to be for a horse barn because it's got a loft with where there used to be the hay. And in there was goats at the time, but it also could be horses, or what it could be what's also called a stable. A place, a barn, a building where you keep livestock, basically. Whether it's cattle or horses or whatever. There's different words. You have to be a little flexible with, in this case, which was written back in the early 19th century, I think 1910 or 1915, which was a time where a lot of great books on occult knowledge are really coming out. Those are still occult classics. They're very good books published in that time. Kessinger Press, which are also on Amazon. I think Kessinger, I don't know if I've said that right, they have a really unique selection of books on occult knowledge from that period. So, use this technique, come up with the answer to the stable. So I went back out to the farm, and I looked, and I thought, you know what, that's where the truck was parked, and it was about from here, you see that tree back there? Maybe that second tree, somewhere between there and that second tree. That was the barn, or what you could call stable, and there were the goddamn keys on the ground. It had just come out, getting out of the truck. So that's a technique, Kabbalistic, where your mind is coming up with, your intuition's coming up with these numbers. A prime number of 1 through 9, 9 numbers, and then add the 3. Anyway, I taught that technique to Kate, and Kate loved it. And she played around with that for a few weeks, and she thought that shit was very, very cool. And she's like, oh, wow, you know, the wow factor in magic, right? Or the occult and abilities, supernatural powers, things like this, which I had shown her some of that too. But anyway, so when the secret police had went to her, or the police, and questioned her, and then Tamuna had talked to me on Facebook, she was mocking it. She said, oh, give me these numbers, can you give me some numbers 1 through 39 or something like this? And so that reference in the chat, for those that have seen this chat between Tamuna Samkaradze, Georgia Ministry of Internal Affairs, and I, that's a mockery of the technique that's in Chiro's book, And Shiro happens to be who Billy Edward Albert Meyer, out of Switzerland, he has a section where he's writing about Kabbalistic calculations and predictions using numerology, and he gives the true numbers to the English alphabet. And I think they even talk about in the discussion forum topic on the Meyer case that they're not even really able to really use that system much, and maybe it'd only be like 50% correct even with the corrected numbers to the English alphabet and so on. So anyway, but the technique works for divining the mind, and especially on lost items and things like that. It's a really cool, fun little occult technique, but it's actually from India. It's actually from the ancient Vedic text. And Shiro acknowledges that. Although the book itself is called Kabbalah of Numbers, he does acknowledge that a lot of this ancient occult wisdom goes all the way back to the ancient Vedic text of India. And I can say that's why in a full life astrology reading, that's why I do use Pandit Parsai's book, and I hand calculate the Vedic Rashi and then Navamsha chart, because the Rashi is like the body of the Vedic astrology. The Navamsha chart is the spine, and even more applicable after the age of 35, some believe, and in my experience, I find that to be true. So you have these life predictions from the Vedic astrology in Pandit Parsai's book out of India. He was so good he could predict to the government or to the royal family. Like he said, look, this guy, one of your advisors or one of your politicians or whatever, this guy working for the government or with the government, he's walking down the sidewalk when Pandit said that month this guy is going to die. The guy falls over of a heart attack and dies that month. I mean, he was that good. He also predicted earthquakes in California. And a lot of times astrologers are written about their predictions, their horoscopes, under a pen name for whatever reasons. But horoscopes remain one of the most popular read sections of the newspapers, at least back in the 1900s in America, for sure. Just, if nothing else, for curiosity or for entertainment. So anyway, but these life readings are big, and that's one reason I incorporate that. But so Tamuna was making fun of that in the chat. And another thing she made fun of was the magic. She goes, oh, I forgot, you're a magic, ha ha ha. Now, I bring that up because obviously they filed a false report on me back in Missouri. I assume it was her or her boss, or one of her bosses. And she wanted me to meet her later. She offered me, I said I'd do this 30-minute astrology for, I'd give her a discount, I'd do it for $50. So I just do it, I send it to her, and then I got to thinking, you know what? She wants me to meet her near her house on Kostova, and she wants to meet at a cafe, have a few drinks. She's going to pay me this cash. And my other American psychic witch friend, Victoria, she tells me, she's sent to monitor you. And I'm thinking, you know what? Probably the U.S. Embassy sent her. Because she spent so much time on Facebook in New York and Florida. And I'm thinking, I bet the U.S. Embassy sent her to monitor me, to check me. And because she'd also said, you can't fight the Freemasons alone. You can't fight them alone. And I'm thinking, who the fuck said I'm fighting these people? You know, it's like they told me they were fighting against me. But there's not something, and I'm not out here like, where's the Freemason? You know, or I don't have some like plan like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I mean, now, I will say this. They try to get me to join them. I'm not interested. There's a guy that is a great bard and magician who's a Freemason. And I've studied some of his stuff, and he sells like an incredible amount of books. In fact, I think he makes a full-time living selling books on Freemasonry, and I was offered the same thing through Merker Publishing. It was actually, sorry, it wasn't offered, it was suggested to me. And this guy loves Franz Bardon, as I do. His teachings, his material, his occult magician life, his books on occult magic and Kabbalah. Because he's a real Kabbalist as well as being a very effective magician who had the life mission of writing these books on magic. So, back to the story about the secret police girl. So I just decided, you know what, fuck this. I don't need, this is ridiculous. I'm not fighting a Freemason. And if they're fighting against me, I guess I'll figure that out. Or maybe I have or haven't, I don't know. But maybe she's so orthodox, because she had told me, she goes, if I were you, I'd go home. If I were you, I'd leave here. You know, she said it in chat. Back in August or whatever of 2016. And I'm thinking, who the fuck is this? You know, I've done all this free volunteer service for an American Georgian Defense related project in Georgia. I've got some wonderful I've got hundreds of films in Georgia. I've got probably a dozen or so films in Russia. I've got films in Switzerland. I got films in Italy, Duomo, the Vatican. I have films in Missouri. And I've got, you know, films in Panama. I got one film in Panama at least. Like, who the fuck is this to tell me I should leave anywhere? They didn't tell me that in Russia. There's no problem. So, what? It's worse here than in Russia in many ways, believe me. So, but I thought that was inappropriate for her to even suggest that. Maybe her intentions were good. But I thought to myself, you know what, fuck this. I don't need to be talking to Georgia Secret Police or the U.S. Embassy's girls they sent to monitor me, whatever the situation was. So I did the reading for her. I never met her. I decided, fuck it, that'll help her life. We'll just let her have it. And I blocked her on Facebook. Then I called the embassy and I recorded it and I published it to YouTube. And I'm telling them and reporting this Georgian Secret Police that stopped me on the street. And then I decided, you know what? I feel like this is persecution. Why is this person find me again? Why are they wanting to meet me? And why are they trying to like, you can't fight the Freemasons alone, like they're fighting. And I'm thinking, if they are, I didn't know it before this moment, and except for what she had told me the year before, right? So I'm thinking, I better do some magic. So Ron Clark, who has now his books for free on his website, a Bardon, B-A-R-D-O-N, companion. A Bardon companion by Ron, R-A-W-N, Clark, C-L-A-R-K. And he's a really cool audio if you're into mysticism or magic or Kabbalah or Kabbalistic magic. He's got some awesome audio when you go to his website right now. And there are, I think, 4 or 5 of his books for free. That's a pretty awesome deal. And back to that one Facebook private chat that no one would have known about but the Freemasons. Because Georgi Rushishvili was asking me specifically, can you teach us magic? Will you show us? I said, look, anything you need to know is in the book. I've been selling this book for years. Frabato is an occult novel about Franz Bardon. And his other books are instructional manuals, if you will, training exercises and manuals on how to do occult magic, which not many people will really be able to do probably, but enough to where, you know, the advancement of the science and the art will continue, and hopefully the progress of humanity, more progress than regress, right? So I kept telling him that. He kept persisting. And I'm thinking the only way that Georgi could be doing this is that they're wanting to test me, what I can and can't do. They're wanting to, once again, find a way to get me near them, to get me to try to join them, or they want to get me to demonstrate something. They want to test me. Or if it's like the old days, Dr. John Dee, or this fake magician, Saint Germain, who was a legend but a con artist, a swindler, according to Billy Meyer, and common sense. They might have really wanted some demonstration to see if they could learn something new, some new techniques, but I really think it was to try to monitor me. But the only way he could have known to ask these questions is because I had just been in Missouri, and I only knew through private chat with Autumn, because I had went out to this rural area, made a good fire, a good circle with Epsom salt, just to make a circle, to have the visual down, to have the energetic perimeter set up. And then I did the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, and then as I learned from Ron Clark, a true magician, and in his book he was chatting about on the internet, a Bardon companion, it talks about when you do the magical evocation and you make contact with the spirit, on the first evocation, you can ask for permission to get a shortened sigil. Sigil, S-I-G-I-L, is signature. It's signature of the spirit. So if it's an angel, a demon, a genie, an intelligence, minister of creation, whatever it is, an entity that you're trying to evoke, make contact with, either mentally, mental travel, astrally, or in real, like in some smoke or in a black obsidian magical mirror, or however you're trying to bring this evocation about, this communication. And some conjecture that it's not actually a spirit, that it's an element or an aspect of your deep subconscious mind. For example, in the example of the 72 goetic spirits, some magicians argue or teach that this is just actually not an actual spirit, but an aspect of your deep subconscious mind, so it's an actual psychological process. Others would argue that it's actual physical, interdimensional being, a real spirit, a real intelligence. And there may be some other arguments or teachings on that I haven't studied as much, but those are basically the two primary schools of thought on that phenomena that I know exist. But a lot of magicians will just simply say, we may or may not be able to prove that, we may or may not agree with that, but we know that magic works, at least when done properly. So anyway, from Ron Clark, we learned that when you do the evocation and you get the sigil from Bardon's book, it's pretty complex on the first evocation. So you usually have it drawn out on a circular piece of paper, on a metal plate, or a piece of metal, or something like this, and it's pretty complex. So it's not something that you can, for example, just draw in the air. So when you make that first evocation, then you can make an agreement that this spirit will serve you, or make a pact or an agreement, and they may become your familiar spirit. So to be able to call them quickly, you can, for example, just get a shortened signature of their name, a shortened sigil, instead of something really elaborate that you really can't do. You can get something shortened, like a nickname, shortened sigil, and then just call on that spirit. Boom, they're there. So after this police stop, I decided, I feel like I'm being persecuted. There's a spirit in Bardon's work in the Virgo Earth Zone under the zodiac Virgo, Brefio in the ciphered name, and he's the angel of justice. And anyone that will persecute the magician, especially if you have a good relationship with this head, this intelligence, this minister of creation. The book has described this particular angel of justice as he himself and or his subordinates will maliciously attack those who unjustly, that's an important key word, unjustly persecute the magician. I'd done a second evocation back in June 21st. That's a much more powerful spirit. It was very interesting because I talk about a creator freelance magic, and that's when I had seen a UFO, and there's a cover image previous to that with the stars and the guys like under the starry sky, and I wrote this story already, so I won't go over it again. But as a result of that, within a day or two, I had a huge python or boa around my neck at my mom's nursing home. On this June 21st evocation, I go out and I do freelance. I mean, I do the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, and then I do the ritual, because I know all this stuff because I do it every day for 2 years straight. So the basic exercises of Western ceremonial or ritual magic to prepare to be able to do, what I do with that. So I went to Van Meter State Park and I did the ritual evocation on June 21st, and it was a lunar sphere. Very, very powerful entity. Other magicians so much fear it that they take the PDF that's on the internet of Franz Bardon's The Practice of Magical Evocation, or PME for short, and they take out page, I think it's page 420 or 421, they take that out. They delete it, they leave it out, because they don't want other magicians to know about that powerful entity. And because it's a lunar sphere spirit. So anyway, I called upon this one and the Angel of Justice. And I took the sage bundle because I didn't have access to this other incense so easily that normally we would like to use, like copal incense, or if you want to follow Bart on closely, you can get elderpith incense, or I think there's a second one that he recommends in place of elderpith. And so I just used the Native American sage bundle because I've already done the initial evocation anyway. I've already gotten the shortened sigil. So I call for a lethal defense from these serving spirits. Draw the sigil in the air, make the contact, and then call for a lethal defense. Because I thought, wow, you know, this is pretty heavy if somebody's coming to me as secret police and saying, the Freemasons are fighting against you. You can't fight against them alone, no. Let's meet. And I have a cash offer for your astrology, and yeah, it's near my house, and let's meet. And I'm thinking, you know, like, what the fuck is going on, right? You know, like, just a guy with a camera and a laptop spending time in Georgia. So what I do is I get out the Native American sage bundle that my friend Autumn gave me, the little blue candle, light blue candle, so peaceful, loving. And I got that sage bundle like a big cigar, and this smoke is going all around the apartment, and I'm like, you know, and I draw the sigil in the air, you know, the shortened sigil, and I call on these spirits. And one of them, I had to go hop in the shower because, god damn, the smoke got to be too heavy. Because, you know, Native American incense, sage bundle, smudge stick. Even Billy Meyer talks about this. You can use these, and it's not really the sage so much. Well, some people argue about that, but it's the mental, it's the mind, it's the clearing of the energy, the spirits, or the, I don't think he uses the word spirits. I think it's clearing the negative energy out of a house or something. House clearing. So Native American smudge bundles are great for that, but it's a little heavy, man. If you got asthma, or if you can't handle smoke or shit like that, you better be careful. But that's how I cleared out my brother's house, and goddamn, dude, so he got a thing straightened up over there. Of course, I put a couple of Kabbalistic spirits down on it, protective spirits. But anyway, that's another story. But he's got a fantastic house out in the rural area right now that he's actually working on some fantastic creativity and innovative ideas on interior design. It's just mind-blowing, man. I'm impressed. He's really intelligent. He's one hell of a brother. He's been a very good friend over the years with very difficult circumstances that he's had to deal with, and he's a incredibly compassionate healthcare worker and never misses a day. Never misses a day. He's taking care of a lot of veterans too, not only grandmothers and grandfathers and farmers, police, ex-military, as I just said. Some of them in the last minutes. It's a difficult job. Anyway, back to my story about Native American smudge sticks and Kabbalistic spirits. So I'm walking around my flat. I've got this Native American smudge bundle that my friend Autumn gave me because back in Missouri on the farm I had done the Kabbalistic evocation and initiated her into one of the serving spirits that served me as a magician. So I did that, and she's been super happy with that ever since. And like I said, I done that other evocation back in June 21st, and that's when the serpent was coming down the trail at Van Meter State Park. I'm at the lake. I just done an hour ritual, and I went to sit on a bench like one of these, and I had a silver in look, but it was nickel. But it was the closest correspondence I could come up with silver because it's a lunar sphere Kabbalistic angel, but it's a destroyer, as Autumn would call it. But it's a very militant type. It's a destroyer. It's a protector on a very serious, like even against black magic, even against energetic attacks, even before they may start. Sometimes it just. So I got the Native American smudge stick bundle going, burning. I do the sigil in the air, call upon these two spirits, serving spirits, protective spirits, and I ask them for a lethal defense against anyone that might be persecuting against me. And this is the kind of magic that I ask for from the serving spirits. Then I put out the sage bundle because the smoke fills up the apartment fairly soon after lighting one of these big smudge sticks up. Then I go take a shower, and 2 weeks later, I see the news. It's actually about 3 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later, on October 4th, Interpress GE, I see that a high-level official in the Georgian Ministry of Internal Affairs was shot to death and died in the hospital. He was shot outside his flat, I guess, if I read the news right. And apparently it was dated back to the actual incident. It said maybe September 25th. And around October 4th or October 5th, I saw my friend George Turkerly's page. I don't know if I said his last name right. It's Georgian. He's a war correspondent for the Georgia Ministry of Defense. And there was a bunch of Georgian guys and girls, and media professionals, I assume, in camo, in like army outfits, but camo. Because I wrote about this story. I wrote about what happened, about how Arthur Freemason, Georgia's security expert, had begged me for a meeting, and that's why I sometimes have called Georgia a nation of beggars. Because I kind of tried to push that away, delay that, but he begged for it. So they put this photo up of the Georgia media, and I was reminded of Noble Partner 2017 exercises, and it said Noble Partner response. We don't beg for our freedom. We fight for it. I thought, wow, what a coincidence. That was such a magical thing, though, because I'm thinking, wow, that's just kind of somehow fits my story. It's like this beautiful scenery I'm in right now. It's a fantastic park. It's raining now. That's why I'm under this tree, but there happens to be, looks like little palm trees over here. Can you imagine? I don't know if you can see them very well. Let me see if I can get there. They're kind of far back there. Yeah, you can see. I'll put my finger approximately right there. These are more prolific over in Batumi near the coast on the Black Sea. See that? So anyway, I thought that was very interesting that these coincidences occurred when I did this magic asking for a lethal defense, because I got to thinking, you know what? I don't need to be meeting with Georgian secret police. What the fuck is that? So that's why I turned it into the U.S. Embassy, and I gave Tamuna a free reading, and then I called down for a lethal defense from magical forces that protect me. And then I laugh about it because all that's just movie stuff, right? It's just fantasy. Well, anyway, now that I've told my entertaining story, but what's scary is if these guys really surveil you, if they really have surveillance and listen into it, that would scare the shit out of them if that was a true story, wouldn't it? Oh my God, how funny, right? But anyway, besides predicting the future of war this last summer before it went down the way that it went down, and thankfully there was no war. And that's the best defense, isn't it? When you can get along in life without actually having a war. I think somebody said something. Didn't Putin say something? Russian President Putin said something about you win when you don't have to use missiles or something. I don't know. Anyway, there's a quote out there. You could look that up. It's probably on this topic somehow. But all my strange stories, I should write them down and make some book. I did make a book, actually, back in mid-November. And it's on the astrology of love. I think it's sold one copy in Japan. You gotta love Amazon. You gotta love the internet. It's working so well these days. Even though I'm probably one of the most or more accurate astrologers on Earth. True story. Obviously, I wouldn't have the secret police of Georgia asking me for readings, right? What a joke. But it's a true story on that point. We don't beg for freedom, we fight for Interesting post, the Georgian media, that was Noble Partner Response 2017. So, that's a little secret that I learned about magic, by the way, the shortened sigil that you can ask directly from the Spirit for on the first Kabbalistic evocation from Ron Clark, a Bardon companion. So that's a little bit about magic, astrology, prediction, witches, warlocks, Freemasons. I don't think I talked about CIA this time, right? I don't really know who those guys are. It's another group I really don't care to get to know. I'd rather be an independent soul with a suitcase and a laptop just traveling the world, right? I mean, I don't need all these other problems. But it's a beautiful day here. It's a nice, cool rain. Spring is certainly being sung about by the local songbirds. They're back. They're joyful. They're happy. So am I. But on the topic of Kabbalistic magic, for those of you that are serious about those things, you might already know this stuff. For those of you that aren't well experienced or practiced or well read in that, well, maybe you've learned something new today. And I can say that I'm still a little bit disappointed that we have people here in Georgia. It's happened too many times. There's assholes everywhere. Everywhere, every society, every country, I'm sure. I can't say that I've been in every country, but I've been in quite a few. And when people ask you to do something and then suddenly they just disappear and they don't talk to you anymore and they just block you, and you've put a lot of work and time into whatever that is that you're doing, well, that just simply shows the stupidity on my part for trusting these kind of people, which in the last several instances have been Georgians. One, an official proxy of the Georgian government and the U.S. government probably perhaps looks like to me, because the last time I seen her, she was with the U.S. ambassador here. Two, another one, and her uncle worked for the Georgian government. She's worked at the hospital here, Lancet Medical Center. And I'll stop at two. I think that's enough. Well, we could go back to Katuno Polari, Georgia Ministry of Defense, that asked that help with this project, and she wanted me to be a part of it, and then we go to do it, and we're still waiting for an answer from some press, some event people here that apparently in 4 days don't know how to answer their American guest on whether he can continue his journalism, his documentary film work here. Isn't that special? It's especially insulting is what it is. It's especially not how we handle things in the U.S. Maybe it's just a cultural thing, right? Maybe they'll answer next year. Who knows? So it looks like it says I've got one view here, but I've got several people that have commented. I've got people that have... I see Lewis. That's very, very cool. Thank you for the really deeply insightful and on-point comments. I can only see Nico. I remember him from Hard Rock Cafe. I think that's the same Nico. Where we were like, you know, and then I see Michael Adiashvili. We had actually been down on my second visit to the Russian military occupation, so-called border or administrative line, whatever you want to call that. Michael was in that group that day, and I remember Michael Adiashvili. But those are the only people I can see here right now. We've got two views showing up here. But I continue to speak because I know I can put this on DTube, YouTube, Vimeo, Dailymotion, Newsflare, and so on, and for my own future archives. But I'm still testing and trying out the live stream video to Facebook. That's my main reason for doing this right now. Lewis says magic only works on or with those that believe in it. That's how I understand it. Magic is basically consciousness at work. I would agree with the magic is basically consciousness at work, more or less. Also, I think that's kind of what Billy remarks in his conversation with Semyaze in contact note 007. 007 was the codes, cryptic, and ciphers expert of the great magician and spy, Dr. John Dee, who delivered to humanity the Enochian system of magic, and also was a great astrologer, mathematician, and visited the great kings and queens courts throughout Europe at the time. But his call sign, his signature, his seal was 007, like James Bond. But on contact note on contact note 7, where Billy's talking with Semyaze at the very end of that note, they do talk about the positive and negative consciousness powers being the explanation for the displays, the supernatural power, or the power of magic displays, as Billy is referring to it. There is a video that I've shared on Facebook from YouTube, and it talks about something about magicians prove the spiritual world exists or something like that. And I think it's around 2.5 hours. It's an incredible video on magicians and magic, and I would encourage anybody that if they have an interest in that topic, or they want to see real magic, as Franz Bardon practiced it too. It's there's a difference between stage magic and illusion, and then occult magic. There's a real difference, and there's a whole different mechanism going on there. Although people that don't understand this, they may see this either one and assume they're the same, or one and the same. But the truth is, there's a huge, complete difference between occult magic using spiritual forces or consciousness-related forces versus the magic of illusion, magic based on illusionists, the illusion, trickery. Huge difference. And if you watch the film, and I think it sounds like it's by a Christian person, so you're not getting the full spectrum of information and the full spectrum of the right occult perspective there, which is the teaching that they're teaching that all these magicians are just relying on demonic or negative consciousness powers, or the mnemonic, or something like this. And so they're looking at it from like an anti-occult or they're looking at it as a Christian perspective, typically. In reality, it's much just like what Lewis commented here earlier. Magic is basically consciousness at work, and Billy Meyer says it would be positive or negative consciousness power. And basically, that's kind of, in some sense, that's how Bardon explains it in this Black Magic book that I just got in the mail yesterday from Aeon Sophia Press out of Holland. It went to America first and it was shipped here. They would basically, it does talk about the positive and negative poles. You've got a positive side, angels, whatever. You got a negative side, demons or whatever, destructive forces, negative forces. So it would be accurate to some extent, the same to say that, yeah, you've got positive and negative forces. And if we want to assume that it's not actual outside intelligences that we're making contact with, like we're making evocation with, these occult forces would actually, by some, be determined to be simply positive or negative consciousness powers. About the video then, the movie on Magicians Prove a Spiritual World Exists on YouTube. What I would comment further is that they only talk about demonic, but in reality, what I just talked about earlier, the two entities or Kabbalistic spirits, the Kabbalistic Earth Zone, Angel of Justice, the Kabbalistic lunar sphere, lunar angel over protection, even against black magic, even against energetic attacks and so on, enemy attacks and so on, even before they may start or happen or something. those are angelic, even though they have the capability in magical theory or practice to destroy, to even kill in defense if it's justified. That's pure white magic because that's angelic. That's not a demonic force. That's not considered a negative force. And there's an interesting teaching in the Billy Meyer case about the justified or the righteous use of force. So that's a little bit of the topic of discussion that some of the people that study the Meyer case and the spiritual teachings got involved with in a group discussion on this topic some time ago on one of the Billy Meyer group topics on Facebook, one of the Billy Meyer study groups. So when you see that video, for those that are interested in seeing real occult magicians work, magicians prove a spiritual world exists, or spiritual reality exists. It's occult magicians, not just stage magicians or illusionists. There's a huge difference, as I said. The other thing is to remember there are the positive consciousness-based powers or forces, or if you want to subscribe to the other school of thought or the other school of magic, which is that they are actual outside intelligences, separate entities. There are the positive sides. There are the angelic sides, according to those books, according to those teachings. So it's a great demonstration of magic in that movie on YouTube that's about 2.5 or so hours long. Magicians prove a spiritual world or a spiritual reality exists. But it's all attributed, all the narrator, the guy that narrates, that talks during this film, he's always attributing it to demonic, to the negative. So you've got this problem in the Christian perspective, in the Christian mind or the anti-occult mind, because they're attributing these positive and negative consciousness-based powers, or occult power, or magic power, whatever, however you want to call it. They're attributing it to demonic. They're attributing it to the devil. They're attributing it to the demon. When in reality, if you study Kabbalistic texts, Kabbalistic teachings, Kabbalistic magic, or Kabbalistic, the Kabbalist practice itself, you will understand that there are both negative and positive consciousness forces. And you will understand, and I can assure you, that you can demonstrate or execute such powers, occult powers, without reliance on anything demonic or negative in that sense. That's my experience, that's my perspective, and that's why I look at that movie on that and I think, you know what, that guy's teaching everybody that if you're a magician, you must have a pact with the devil. That's not, no, that's not true, because you could pact with an angel, or you could simply have a Kabbalistic, angelic, Kabbalistic intelligence, however you want to call that, positive consciousness power, and, predict a future, or do some elemental magic, move the winds, or, stop the rain, make the rain come, whatever it is that you're doing, with an occult power or occult ability, and have absolutely no experience with the demonic or use or pact with the demonic. So that's the distinction that I want to make for those that could even follow this conversation on the occult magic topic, or the use of consciousness, positive or negative consciousness powers. So anyway, it's really a beautiful park here. There's a few people that have been out walking around. I don't know if anybody else is still out here. There's an old man over there, and that young couple that was over there kissing, I'm sure they got rained out. The thing is, in Georgia, especially in Soviet times, but even as much as just as much as 5 years ago, there was this beautiful tall model. I've dated a number of models here, but I was meeting her, and there was another girl that I met with just about a year or so ago. I actually had met her just more recently. Anyway, just some months ago. But when we first met 5 years ago, it'd say, hey, let's take some pictures, let's meet, let's talk, let's, whatever. I made the mistake of asking if they want to meet at the Botanical Gardens, the park, because in their society, and in that time especially, because of their economic and cultural living situations different, a lot of families live together in one place. Maybe even second, third generation, all in one flat. One house, one flat. That makes getting to the idea of having sex is going to be outside the house for the younger people especially. So, of course. So you end up, they are going out into nature a lot. And so I didn't understand it because I'd been here and I'd been married with Yulia, and we didn't worry about anything like that. We had our own flat. We had no problems like that. So here I am. I'm back. It's years later, and I'm meeting these girls, and I'm saying, "Hey, you want to go to the botanical gardens?" And they're looking at me like, because then this other guy's, this Georgian friend, say, "Hey, that means he wants to have sex with you at the park," because that's a lot of times it's what people think. They're thinking, "Let's go there and where we can have some privacy." So you have to be careful when you go to the park, because if you go to the park and it's up, especially more toward the outside of the city, the outer edge of the city, especially if you're inviting a Georgian girl there, she might, in the back of her mind, she might think, "Oh, this guy's wanting to have sex with me at the park." Because in their minds, they're not doing it at home with mom and dad or grandpa and grandma in the house. Yeah. We had some huge misunderstandings over this point. So I'm just helping with the cultural understanding here. Because if you visit here, if you're on my Facebook and you make some Georgian friends and you're going to come here and visit and tour the country and go to Batumi and spend some time at the seaside very inexpensively. If you're going to go up to Borjomi and see the beautiful mountain and nature and drink the best mineral water, some of the best mineral waters in the world, the Caucasus area is known to have one of the world's few lasting centenarian population where people live to be more than 100 or 120 years because of the water. And Borjomi, for example, is known for its healing properties. It's been used in some sanatoriums, or it's been used even for diabetes mellitus and other conditions. If you're going to come and go to Kazbeki, with one of the highest, fastest rapids rivers in the mountains in Europe, one of the most visited, more than 1 million visitors a year going there to Kazbeki. If you're going to come here and enjoy the food, the wine, the world-renowned, most ancient people, wine culture on earth at incredibly inexpensive prices, but some of the best quality, in my opinion, in the world. If you're going to come and enjoy Georgia, if you're going to come and enjoy Georgian culture, Georgian people, Georgian nature, and travel and tour here, then I hope I've helped with the culture today with that little point. Because if you're visiting with your Georgian young female friends, and I mean 20, 21, 25, and you invite them to the local park, if you're a photographer especially, they may have the wrong idea if you don't make yourself clear. They may think you're inviting them for the wrong reasons. Because it's just different like that with an understanding. Let's see if we've got some other comments here. I see Lewis, creation forms an equilibrium. Everything has an opposite, the Kilon principle of duality. Yep. Everything is consciousness, positive and negative. Each human chooses to use either one. You know, that's tricky too. It's we read that, we know that, and we get that, but then I think, based on our background and our current surrounding, our current atmosphere, I think it's a constant work, as most spiritual texts, magical texts too, speak about, or the self-improvement, self-help stuff too, and a lot of religions too. They'll teach that, you know, it's an ongoing work, the consciousness development. And you know, these young Georgian friends years ago, they asked me, they're like, well, "What do you think of Georgia? What do you really think?" You know, and this number one answer I would give back then is that I said, I wish they would understand the power that each one of them really has. That the power, but they've completely blind to it or block it up. It's the consciousness. It's completely the consciousness. I had a friend, very close friend. I had to stop hanging out with her for a while because she's like, she wanted to do something. And as an American friend, I'm like, okay, I'm going to support you in that. That's cool. I'm going to say, yeah, I'll go do that. That's cool. Let's do that. Yeah, they're good for, I want to see her win, change, do whatever she wants to do. And, you know, if it was something a little bit too much out of her comfort zone or too much out of her culture's or society's comfort zone, right? She would be like, and I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating here. I'm not making fun of her. I I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And my God, I had to get the hell away from her for a while. I'm not lying. I'm not exaggerating. She says, I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh, Jesus. Now, you see this guy. Years ago, I was in a big house, and family said, look, the bank doesn't own this house. You stay here forever if you want. And I said, no, I think I'm going to travel the world. But it was a nice house. It had 3 levels. It had a full basement. It's a middle-class neighborhood, middle-upper-class neighborhood. Everything was being remodeled, reconstructed. And I actually think they turned around and made 50 grand off that. Who knows? I don't know. Just joking, right? But I had all that, and I'm there, but I was married to a girl for a little bit, wrong girl. But it took me a while to figure that out. And every other weekend we had children come over, and I had one rule, and it was a very strong rule. And I took this shit really serious, man. The rule was, because the little girl got up on the monkey bars, and she's gonna grab these monkey bars, and she's she's like 6 years old. And we had one fucking hard rule. I didn't use the F word. I said we have one, and she tried it, and she said, I said, what's wrong? She only do like 1 wrong, 2 wrong. She says, I can't. She had problems. I've told this story before. I've written it. She said, I can't. And I said, no. I said, you don't say that around me. And the rule was, if you said, I can't, and you're a kid in the house, and you said that, TVs go off, there's no more TV, you don't go outside, you put the toys away, that's it. I'm not going to hear that shit in my house. And that was the rule, man. The problem was the little girl was going to fail school. She wasn't learning how to read. Teachers got a hold of her mother. There'd been big problems with her mother. And she was the stepson's cousin. So something had to be done. And so, first of all, we started reading together. We had a little session where we're going to come in. They're going to come into my office and we're going to read. And there's a real office. The $3,000 computer, desktop, the best goddamn sound system you could imagine in the whole earth. No joke. It was the second best the whole, I think, Dell computers had at the time. My God, even the neighbor kids loved that. They come over to the fence. These little guys, man, they're like 10, 12, 15 years old. They're like, we love your music. Well, yeah, because everybody was coming and plugging in their favorite tunes into the iTunes or whatever, into the playlist. So you had farmer people, you had college kids, you had motorheads, you had guys that just like to hunt, fish, and hang out on the back roads. You had these trendy kids come in from out of state that are going out to Missouri Valley College. You had just people from all over. I used to have huge parties for like a year and a half at my house. And I was so popular there. I would come down the street and I'd stop and I had a carload of people. This is like 10 years ago. Now it'd be a little bit more than 10 years. Let me think about when that was. 2001, 2002, 2003. 2003. I'm driving down the street on the way to my house, and I got a carload of kids. And when I say kids, I mean 18 to 25, 30, whatever. 35, 40. I think my oldest friend was 40. Tim Fox. He's on my Facebook here. But we're driving down the street, and we stop and we ask these guys. We say, "Hey, man, you guys know where there's a party?" And the guys look over and they get down on the and they say, "Listen, man, there's this guy. His name is Vanderpool, and we hear that's where the best parties are. So you gotta go check there." And I'm like, "Oh, really? All right, I'm gonna go check that out." And that, of course, was me. They didn't know who I was, but they had heard about my parties. So, anyway, I had an office, had this huge house and sound system. Boom, 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 and everybody loved the music, even the little neighbor kids and shit. But here, little Lakin would come over and she'd go to school and she wasn't reading. She's going to fail. They're going to have to do something. They're going to put her in some special ed class and instruction on reading. No shit. And so the second thing, besides the rule about not saying that shit I can't in my house, the second rule is we're going to read together a little bit. I want to hear you read. And we'd ask, her aunt and I, would ask, how are you doing? Well, let's see, what can you do? How is it going? How does your test? We took an interest. This was early on in the year. Well, it came time for that school year to end, and by that time, she had become the second best student in her class. A teacher had sent home a note saying she is with another boy, the best reader, and she reads out loud now for the class. Then we went up to Independence, Missouri. They had a huge Barnes & Noble bookstore. I mean, that motherfucker, it's like, whew, it's just, you can't imagine. It's bigger than this building even over back here. This son of a bitch is just huge. We got like 13 movie theaters next to it. You've got like even a whole section just on children's books and toys. So she goes in there, little Lakin, and it's time to go, man. And we had to come and get her. But there was an adult guy there with his son. His son was over there playing with the toys. And she had taken him and set him down and was reading to this guy. So when I think back on life and I think about what we say to ourselves and about that shit about I can't, I remembered my Georgian friend and about how she used to do that. It was tough, man. Hey, bombs fell all over the fucking place, man. I know the story. I seen the videos. Bombs. Boom, 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 boom. Left, right. Boom, 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 boom. 3 or 4 hours. Just boom, 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 boom. Russian jets. I understood post-traumatic stress disorder. I understood it. I watched it in her life. Sometimes it would come back and she'd just be flipping out, man. She'd just be stressing out. I can't do this, I can't. Her daughter the same. So I said, you know what, we can't hang out if you're going to say this shit anymore. We just can't do that. You're going to have to tell yourself, I can and I will. She had a dream to travel overseas, or at least into Europe. She had a lot of dreams, man. But since that time and over the years, maybe some of the PTSD had calmed, maybe some of it had dissipated, but she finally went to Italy. And she began to go even to other places, you know, just more independent, more calm, more what she wanted to do. But I had a rule, and I still practice it today. If you're the kind of person that's going to come around and say, you know what, I can't do this, or negative this, or pessimistic that, I mean, you can laugh about magic, you can laugh about numbers, you can laugh about predicting the future, you can laugh about occult powers or supernatural abilities or super normal human abilities or whatever the hell. I don't care. It won't stop me from doing what I do. But when it comes to people that I'm spending time with that are close to me, they have to believe in themselves. They have to tell themselves, I can. And if they want, I will. They have to say that. And because I don't have time or space for people that are going to tell me what they can and can't, what they can't do. I can't take that space for people that are going to look through limited blinds. Like they put on the horses, they put a blind so that they could just pull and the horse can only see just wherever you want them to go. That's it. It's a blind. I'm going to have time for that. But especially if you're a traveler. My God. You not only get people that are jealous or skeptical, But you get people that are scared for you. Oh my God, you shouldn't go there. You shouldn't come here. You get it on both sides of the ocean. And I mean, it's heavy. Sometimes like, oh my God, if you go there, they're going to put you in jail. You're going to go to prison. They're going to kill you. Oh my God, if you go to America, you'll probably end up, you know, some drug killing problem, blah, 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 whatever, some weird shit about America. You get it all over the world, man. Depends on which border you cross. And the weird shit is, you cross a border and you get these other rules that they try to push on you. Like, you go to Turkey, suddenly everybody's singing an Aqaba prayer like 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. 1/3 of the people, 2/3 of the people, they stop. Some of the shops close, some stay open. Some people go to the mosque. Some people stay under the mosque with tea break. Suddenly, if you're wearing a dress and you're with, or your girl, if you're with your girl and she's wearing a dress, you got to make sure, or she's coming back from the sea like we were, you got to make sure that that's not too short on the calf, or they're going to be looking at you with hate like you're going to jail. If you cross over into another culture, they're going to be telling you should think this or that about Jesus, if you think this or that about Islam, or this or that about whatever. So the more borders you cross, the more cultures and societies you spend time in, you got to figure out which day is the special day of the week, which way to dress, which way to do this, which way to do that, and whose way. Why is it this way? Well, it's the church's way. Well, it's the government's way. Well, it's our way. Well, it's this tradition. It's that tradition. Oh my God, the more you travel, the more you're like, okay. But you learn not to take it so serious. Because if you take it serious everywhere you go, you're gonna be all kinds of stressed and not happy. And it's an invisible thing, right? The people that believe in this invisible shit, you cross a line. Suddenly, oh, now I'm in Turkey. Oh, we got to face this way to pray. Oh, if you're a woman, you better cover like this. Oh, you better not say this. Oh, you could have some freedom, but only a little bit. Freedom is good, but only a little bit. I mean, if you cross this line here, different rules, man's rules, man-made rules, religious rules. Which religion, which church, which sect, which book? Dude, you got people killing people over that shit. They're killing each other over that shit. They will kill each other over that shit. They will be like, oh, you broke this rule, you broke this religion, it's against this book, it's against that book, it's against this interpretation. So you got to watch when you cross a border, because human beings on this planet, they got some crazy rules going on. Depends on which invisible line. And some are not invisible. Some have walls. I guess Trump wants a wall on the border with Mexico, right? Then that's no longer an invisible line. That's a wall. And maybe we need it. I don't know. I haven't studied it that in depth. But the idea is that this is how crazy the humans are on this planet. And it gets crazy because you go to Panama even, and they've got their Catholic rules. It's not that bad, but because I grew up in a Christian culture, that's why. But you go to Panama, you go into a state or a government building, and if the wife's sleeve on her shirt or dress or whatever, if it isn't long enough, you must go home and change. Once you go home and put on the long, then you can come in. It's a rule, man. Everybody's got their rules, and but I have the rule. I don't have time or space for people, especially as an international traveler, especially as an independent thinker. I don't have time or space for people that are going to try to give me their fear. I don't have time or space, personal space or time, for people that are going to try to inject their fear or their jealousy or their limitations on me. When I feel that, when I see that, when I hear that, I have to flee, man. I have to go. I have to bring out this, you know what? We can't hang, we can't do this. I got to have my space. I'm working on nurturing my garden, my space of positive progress. And whatever those goals are at the time that I'm working on, and I'm working on now, I'm either accomplishing them or adapting and moving in ways to get what I want and get it done. But I don't have time for these people that are coming in with limiting, especially self-limiting. Because you find that if you try to help someone else and they're constantly going to pull down, it's like, that's what I'm talking about here in Georgia. If I come to a place where I don't see progress, if I come to a place where I don't see advancement, after a little time, patience runs out and I'm headed someplace else. Life's too short. So right now, I'm making this live video, testing the live feed again on Facebook. Why am I going so long? Because I want to know how long I can go. If there's events coming up, as in newsworthy, or just for fun, I want to know if it's a 3-hour concert. I want to know how long I can hang out and do the live thing. I want to know, everything about it. Like right now, I see there's one view, but yet there's 1, 2, 3 people, 2 from America, 1, Mereki. I was just talking about Mereki earlier. I shouldn't say that though, but yeah, so in a positive sense, not negative sense. But I didn't say her name. Hello, Carla. Patty, cool. I haven't seen Patty for a while. So it's only showing 1 viewer right now. See, that's what I mean by testing. And I think there's more people viewing right now, but here it's only showing 1. So, and also what I'd like to know is if I'm the only American in Georgia, the country, that's actually doing live stream. Because, with GPS, they know exactly where I am, because GPS is on the Google device here. Or this is not Google, but the Google tracking, because I am doing Google Local Guide, Google Maps contributions, and they're tracking me. So, in Iran, it is said, I don't know if it's true, but in Iran, it's said that by satellite, if you're a journalist there, they can just whack your device. They can just take out your electronics. Boom, you're shut down. That's it. They'll know exactly where you're at, and if they want, they can just knock out your transmission. That's it. So here I am in Georgia, live feed, and I've got people here from the United States that I know, such as Carla and Patty. I've known through Facebook. She's from the Midwest. So it's kind of phenomenal, right? It's kind of phenomenal to have this kind of technology, this kind of capability, and there's no harassment today. There's no, if you're seeing this, there's no problem. It's working. But the reason I started on this is because a Georgian friend in New Jersey said, hey, why don't you do live feed from our favorite restaurant, where there happens to be the belly dancer, Ellen Oriental. And man, she's awesome. And I mean not just only as a dancer and a master dance teacher, and internationally known and international dance competitor in belly dance and Oriental dance. Well, she's really intelligent, and I mean in a practical way. I've sat down, I've talked to her, and that's what impressed me about her the most. She's an intelligent woman in a very practical way. She's got some very good people skills, some good insights. So I see Mereki, Patty, and Carla. It says they're watching, but up here it's got 1 person viewing. And the comments, I don't know what we've got there. So anyway, this is me testing live stream, Facebook from Tbilisi. And it's so cold, I don't know if you can see. Let's see if you can see my breath. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. You can probably barely see that, so the rain has pretty much stopped though. So I can come out from under this tree. Yeah. We'll talk about gardening a little bit. I've planted gardens. My brother suggested that I come back over and do how-to hunt gardening videos, because we had a garden one year, 50 foot by 150 feet. And so rows would be about every 6 inches to foot and a half. If it was watermelons, we'd plant those a little differently, with little hills or pumpkins or cantaloupe or melons. I can't sit because, see that? It's wet. I see some girl. There's a restaurant here I didn't know was here. I'll have to go and check that out maybe. But with gardening, I want to experiment with the Sonic Bloom system by Dr. Dan Carlson. Sonic Bloom was developed by Dr. Dan Carlson, who was a veteran of the North Korean-American War. He was so distraught in seeing a North Korean mother and a child that was something about, I think, ran over by a tank or to be able to go into the city and beg for money to keep him alive because it was such a brutal regime. It was so hard to stay alive and have enough to eat there. So here's a dry spot under a tree on the bench. I'm going to take it. And I've never seen this. Looks like a restaurant or something here. Maybe I'll check that out later. But anyway, here at the park. What it was is Dan Carlson then said to himself, I hope I get his last name right, with Sonic Bloom. He promised himself, after seeing that as a soldier in the North Korean War, that he was gonna solve the problem of world hunger. So what he did is he studied the whole plant growing thing, and he figured out this system with the nutrient spray and this right nutrient mix, this nutrient spray, and also the right frequency of music, or I think it was just a mix also of birds chirping, but it might have been a certain frequency. But it caused the stomata on the leaves of the plants to open in response to this sound being played through loudspeakers in the greenhouse or in the garden or in the field or the forest, wherever you're using Sonic Bloom, because the sound would then cause the stomata to open, and then you would spray this nutrient spray on the plants. And so, for example, if you're growing an apple orchard, you have an apple tree, you might get 200 to 500% more production in apples. So, for example, instead of getting, let's say 50 apples off that tree, you might get, like 150 or 250 apples off that tree. So, Sonic Bloom is something that is valid, it's real, it's used in some countries, but in some other countries, it's still kind of not a known thing. It's like this guy that talked about impact floats back in Marshall, Missouri, where they were using this impact floats in Columbia and Kansas City, and it's really fantastic for healing and health and recuperation, physical therapy kinds of situations. He was a professional massage therapist, and this was a really hot thing. But that idea won't fly over in Saline County, he thought, because their minds, this is where my parents live, their minds are a little bit still not open to new ideas. In fact, they would kill new ideas there. But he thought maybe it would work in Sedalia. But it's working quite well in Columbia and Kansas City. So for like $65, you can go to a sensory deprivation tank with clean water, but with Epsom salts in that water, and you float. It's a flotation tank, sensory deprivation, and with all this magnesium salts in the water, and you're floating. Maybe it's sea salts too, I don't know, but you're floating. It's got enough salt in there the way you actually float. And with a sensory deprivation and this type of float, if you've got physical injuries or physical ailments, or even some things that maybe chiropractic addresses, for example, or maybe massage therapy you would get a relief or a benefit in those ways from these impact floats, as it's called. So anyway, there's a website by that name. You can check that out. But back to Sonic Bloom. Sonic Bloom is when they had the tsunami. I think it was down in Indonesia or Southeast Asia. I don't know which, but in one of those countries, it might have been Indonesia, they went in and they put Sonic Bloom into practice, and then they ended up feeding all these people in a very difficult, famine-stricken region due to the tsunami. So why more people aren't using Sonic Bloom and Dr. Dan Carlson's method of growing exponentially produce, fruits, vegetables, and agriculture, I don't know. Maybe it's because just simply people don't know about it enough yet. They haven't implemented this fantastic system of exponential growth when it comes to agriculture, fruit and vegetable production, food production. Also, not only did you get more fruits and vegetables from the system but you also got increased nutrition. So, let's say an orange, if you got vitamin C, right, or a kiwi fruit, for example, if it's grown under sonic bloom, you'd find, upon measuring, that the increase in nutrition was also some ridiculous amount, like 50% or 100% more, something like that. So those 2 points, those 2 measures, were so profoundly advanced exponentially by the sonic bloom system of growing that Dr. Dan Carlson, a veteran of the American-North Korean War, developed, because he promised himself, you know what, I'll never forget this woman's child undergoing the tank to become a cripple, to go to the city, to be able to legitimately, authentically beg for food to keep the family in the village alive. And he made that promise out of that traumatic situation in life to improve the lives of so many through sonic bloom. But I still don't think many people know about it as much as they should. So, for those that are into growing, gardening, that's what my brother had talked about. We were going to build a greenhouse. We started to. Actually, not we, but my dad started to. And an issue had come up, and it was to where he couldn't finish that. But my brother's in the position now where he may want to try soon. We've talked about it for some years, the greenhouse growing. And he's already got some rabbits that he's raising now. But my gardens were in the ground. I didn't get a chance to use a greenhouse yet, or just didn't do it. I had the chance, I just didn't do it yet. But the garden was about 150 by 50 foot, and as I mentioned, we had melons, pumpkins, watermelons, cantaloupe, spinach, cut and come again lettuce. That was always fun. Chef's Garden. Chef's Garden catalog is a seed catalog, and in there the cut and come again lettuce is really nice to have. It's usually a pretty good mix of romaine types of lettuces, but the nice thing is, with a lot of lettuce you just plant it once, you take it and that's it. With cut and come again lettuce, you plant it in the rows, or in a patch if you will. You cut it, take the lettuce, put it in your salad or your sandwiches or whatever, and then in a few days, that lettuce where you had cut, it's grown up again. And so you come back and you want more lettuce for your salad or your soups or whatever, or your sandwiches or whatever, and you cut it. And that's so cut, and it comes again. So this type of chef's salad catalog lettuce, cut and come again lettuce, that's what I mean. So those of you that are studying English, you'll find this very interesting. But in the Midwest, those of us that are gardening, this is well known for us. A lot of chefs probably know it very easily, and greenhouse people that have greenhouses and grow things, they probably already know exactly what I'm speaking about. But I of course, it's the same with strawberries, right? When you've got strawberries, we had what we call the June, for the month of June, June, the month of June. They're called June bearers. They put on fruit in June. And I remember my grandfather loved this. So I would come out from the nursing home where I would be, with Teresa, or I would maybe just be there checking, or I might be there just by myself. I'd come out of the nursing home that I was administrative assistant for. It's a small RCF. And we'd come over to the garden, and there was the June bear. So a lot of times it's weather like this. It just rained or something. And it's still a little bit cool maybe, but it can be hot. It's June, and Missouri is kind of that space between cool and hot. And there would be these fresh, plump, red, beautiful, delicious, sweet strawberries. Mylina, as they say in the Russian. Mylina. And some girls are named Mylina. And they'll come through these apartments here with these, and they'll say, Mylina, Mylina, strawberries, strawberries. And if it's a girl who is Mylina, you think, my strawberry, or she's a strawberry, that kind of thing. But we also have the ever bearers. I was joking with a Georgian girl on Facebook earlier. She put something about Eva, and I knew she meant Eva as in the kind of hip way to say forever, right? And I joked, coming back with the Georgian female name Eva, knowing she didn't really mean that, but the girl who went to the House of Justice here, we tried to marry. They violated her human rights, my human rights. We didn't get the wedding license. They basically coerced her into a monastery, Georgian Orthodox Church, which is pretty much like a cult, C-U-L-T. They're pretty extreme. Anyway, and I confirmed that with police. They found that she was in the police. They called. They said, yeah, she's in the monastery. And I saw her. She didn't want to go there. It was crazy. Anyway, I joked back as something about, oh, Eva. Anyway, we joked back and forth a little bit with some comments about Eva and forever, and Eva, the name, the play on the name, the Georgian female name, Eva. Like Eva. Eva was, in the biblical story in Genesis, the first woman that married Noah, which in reality, if you go back to Jewish text, Talmudic text, Hebrew text, you'll find, even in occult texts especially, you will find the story that Eva was not Noah, Adam, was not Adam's first wife. Adam's real first wife was 300 to 400 years before that, was Lilith. And so you get this Lilith goddess in dark mythology or in left-hand path magic or in other teachings. I don't know what Asenath Mason is teaching about Lilith, but you get this idea that she's a demon. She's been demonized. So anyway, but I'm not an expert on that history, but I have a brief idea of there's more history to Eva, the first woman, in mythology or in historical religious texts than what's taught in Christian history in America. So you get the ever-bearers, and these are strawberries that they will produce maybe in June, but you plant them in May, maybe June, but they will produce June, July, and August. The difference is maybe they won't produce as much. Maybe they will now. I don't know what's progressed since, 10, 15 years ago. Let's say 15 years ago. 20 years ago, actually, 20 years ago. But they may, June bearers come on, they produce a lot, and then that's it. They produce basically around the time of June, and then that's it. But with ever bearers, they're supposed to produce, maybe not so much in the beginning, but they'll produce through the whole season, the whole growing season, the whole summer. That's the difference between Mylena or strawberries, June bearers, and ever bearers. Let's see. I'm going to read the comments. Randy Scott, how are you doing, bud? It's been a long time since I've seen you. Patty Fletcher, hi, Michael. I'm getting ready to start my garden. Awesome. Just bought some baby chickens, too. Right on. Hey, I love baby chickens. It's always a chore, right? You got the heat lamps out. If you're getting them in from one of the hatcheries, right? Go to the post office in Marshall, and you got to show up. I think it's usually in the morning, but when they get there, you got to be ready to come over. They'll call. You show up at the post office. You get these live baby chickens, and they're all, If you get the eggs, and you're gonna hatch out the eggs, though, you got the heat lamps out, unless they're the hens doing it. You got to get the heat lamps out. You got to make sure that the beaks are not, because if they go into the water, they drown very easily. Especially if let's say you get 100 chicks in, right? Like if you're growing for meat, like on the farm. Like my dad's got 2 professional poultry houses that he's built, and they've got professional done electricity because he can do electrical, he can do, all that stuff. They've got heating, everything. So if you get 100 of those in there, like I've seen, like we've done before, the beaks, if they go down, because you get crowded, man. You get 100 chicks in there, and you get crowded, and one pushes you in there, and suddenly you lose that chick because they drown. So you have to watch them. And I'm not talking just to Patty. I'm sure Patty already knows all this, believe me. I don't doubt Patty's knowledge about chickens. So I'm going to be, she says, I'm going to be driving up to Missouri to buy my heirloom seeds also. That's awesome. Hey, my mom and I, back in December, they had some seeds at Orchland's farm store there in Marshall. And some of them were heirloom seeds. Man, they were cool. They had blue corn on the cob. I was absolutely mind-blowing. And I think they had white, too, or it was a white, completely moon white, lunar white, maybe like gourd. But just, can you imagine? You've got the blue corn and decorative corn, or Indian corn as we call it, right? Or heirloom, as Patty wrote. So my mom bought some awesome seeds. And she's always got so much going on with the nursing care business that I'll have to remind her. Not that she'll forget that, but I ought to ask her about that and say, hey, do you remember what heirloom seeds we bought? Because, man, they had some awesome stuff. They had the popcorn. They had many other kinds of heirloom corn, Native American corn. And, I mean, stuff I'd never see here. I don't know. I'd have to go look around, but I don't think we'd ever see things like that in Georgia. Although, like I said earlier, just over here looks like some kind of little tropical palm type trees that you'd see like maybe miniature in California. Because on the seacoast here, I think they've got 6 different climatic zones in Georgia. And it's a little tropical down toward in Batumi. It's raining a lot more. They've got like little like mango, or looking like, I don't know if it's lemon or lime. They have some sort of citrus trees down there. And I remember that because on the train over to Turkey, we'd stop at Batumi, and we'd also stop at a border town there to cross over and then take a bus through Turkey or into Turkey to Trabzon or wherever. So on the Black Sea coast, it was more tropical, but a bit like London in that there was a lot more rain, you know. And I don't like London for that reason, not to spend time in, because and same with Holland. It's too much rain, you know. Even on New Year's, man, there was too much rain there. So but about the heirloom seeds, yeah, I'm trying to remember if I did much with that. I got on the pepper thing because I watched Dr. Richard Schulze, Schulze, herbalist, with the American Botanical Pharmacy. I had his Save Your Life video series with Sam Biser, Biser, and Sam and Dr. Richard Schulze. And he's got videos up on Google Video and I think YouTube, of course, and the American Botanical Pharmacy. So I got heavy into peppers. I didn't like to eat them, though. I mean, I did. I like bell peppers. I had one today. And later, when I post photos from Degusti, you'll see that I had a red bell pepper packed with rice and a little bit of meat. And you'll see that when I post Degusti photos later at the cafe down here. But I was into peppers, so I planted more than anything one year. I got African bird pepper, which is like 250,000 or 300,000 Schofield units, heat units. It's very, very hot. But it's medicinal peppers that I was after. But I planted Alberno peppers. I had the orange, the green, the red, jalapeno peppers. And I had so much. These big laundry tubs that you buy like at Walmart with the rope handles, you know, or at the dollar store, that kind of thing. I had about 4 or 5 laundry tubs full of peppers at one point. I had too many peppers. We had a Nicaraguan or Honduran and Mexican community in Marshall, Missouri. And in fact, they have their own grocery store, at least one or more. And I was trying to get a hold of some of those folks back then, or neighbors, other people from around that might want these peppers, because it's a big, hugely used vegetable. I used improper English there, but anyway, it's very often used in Spanish, Mexican, Central American dishes. And I had so many, I had to give them away. I just had way too many peppers. We did the corn. We didn't do a lot of corn because we always had huge, like just acres and acres and acres. Like my mother's family's got somewhere between 200 to 500 acres of what is largely farm ground. So there's always corn. But we might have grown a little bit of sweet corn just to try for a bit. But mainly was growing also spinach, broccoli. Tomatoes was huge. We'd have about 6 rows of tomato plants. You'd be cutting a tomato open, and then onions. My grandfather loved green onions. So we had the green onions, and then maybe some yellow onions, maybe some white onions, and maybe we try some potatoes. But we had also, I got into Dr. Schultz studies at Sam Biser's Save Your Life video series. So not only did I plant the peppers, but I tried some echinacea. And then to try the dandelion roots, and there's a story. I used the dandelion image, with the seeds, Make-A-Wish, or the later became representative, maybe somebody parachuting, like U.S. Special Forces parachuting out of a plane or something, or the idea, which is my original purpose, is the idea of ideas, seeds. Some see weeds, some see medicine, some see food, some see healing. So you can see what you want. Some see a flower, beautiful flower. Some see a weed. Cut that stuff down, right? Let's make some poison spray. So this is the idea, that it's the idea. Seeding the world, letting it be free, parachuting into the wind. Okay, it's kind of a flight aspect to it, right? One day, my grandfather and son, I asked them to go out and collect the dandelion root. And they did. And I took that and blended it up with vodka and apple cider vinegar. And then for 2 weeks in the dark place, we'd store it, shake it once, twice, 3 times a day, shake it, and then strain it. If you're on a ditrophin or oxybutynin, I don't know if it's oxybutynin. Ditrophin. There's an alternative medicine to this. It's like another name for it, or it's like a close drug or the same drug. Ditrophin. I don't know oxybutynin if it was the other one, but ditrophin and its other like drug or the same drug by the same name. It's a different name. These class of medications for the elderly cause, they are for incontinence. So if you're wetting yourself and you can't control your urinary system and you're wetting yourself, you go to a medical doctor in America, they most often will prescribe that, or at least they did, 25 years ago. And a common side effect is memory loss. You lose your memory. There's a good chance that you may be one of the unlucky ones. There's a good chance that you could end up to the point that you don't even know who your own husband is, if you're a woman, who your own husband is anymore. Maybe you're missing the bus at the workshop or at your work where you're going, make a little craft, a little crochet, or just hang out and visit some people or something like that. And you go to pick up this person and they're getting on the wrong bus. They don't know where the hell they're going. They're going with the wrong people to the wrong place. You get them back home. They go into their room. They come out and they say, "Who is that man in my room? I don't know this stranger." "Oh, I'm sorry. You don't remember it. That's your husband." That kind of memory loss. How about that? Hey, but if you read the side effects on this medicine, if you read those side effects, it's possible. It's listed. Memory loss. Now, it was my job to track that. One of my jobs. It could be anything, right? You administrative assistant, nursing home. It's kind of like this deal over here in Georgia. What do? I'm a photographer, man. That's it. I'm an honorary member of a military aviation society, Alexander Cardvelli International Society of Alexander Cardvelli. That's it. I take pictures. Sometimes there's government people around. That's what it was last year, right? Or whenever that was. Yeah. Same thing in nursing care. I'll tell you, it's like this. I was in the hostel in New Zealand, the most popular one in the country. New Zealand's like Georgia. There's only maybe 3 or 4 million people on that island. Anyway, there was a guy from England there, and he was a hospital administrator. It was so much fun to hear him talk because he said something perfect. I will never forget it. He's talking to another guy in the bunk, and I told him I used to be a nursing home administrator, or administrative assistant. My dad was never there. He's maybe come over twice a month. That's it. And because I could always handle most everything by phone. And I handled the state inspections, families, social workers, psychiatrists, medical doctors, staff, residents, maybe once in a gray moon or blue moon or whatever, police, maybe go to the hospital, maybe go more often go to the medical clinics. Anyway, professionally manage medical care and situations for the elderly, for the mentally ill, for the mentally retarded, and veterans, mainly for the elderly. But what the guy said in New Zealand, but he was from England. But here we are, we're in this hostel, and he said, the best way I can describe my job as a hospital administrator back over in England is I'm the guy that runs around all day trying to put other people's fires out. So if you get a surgeon and he's made a mistake and he's left scissors in somebody's body, and in an x-ray they've come back and they found this out, I'm the guy that's got to go deal with that and solve that problem. And I got to try to do it in a way that I don't lose my job and everybody else doesn't lose theirs. The best way I can describe my job is going around and putting smaller or larger fires out, usually 3 to 4 a day in the hospital. That's how he described his job. Hospital administrator. And believe me, if you're a hospital administrator, you've got all the money you need to travel. I don't know if you'll have the time. I guess if you get lucky to get that vacation 2 weeks out of the year, I don't know if they get a better vacation time than anybody else in America. But if you get the time, oh, you've got the money. You can travel wherever the hell you want. And if you've got the time, you can stay as long as you want to. So anyway, that's I'll never forget that in New Zealand. That was a cool guy. And the guy that came with his kayak, goddamn, he lost his kayak. His mother, he was from Scotland. And he didn't really like these guys from Scotland and England. They had kind of a little friendly, maybe not so friendly rivalry going on. And he wasn't sure about guys from America, though he had been to Scotland, and sometimes behind his back he might say, fuck those guys from America or something like this. Anyway, he was a fun guy. Everybody was smoking one day because he made sure his mother had married an oil guy, a guy that married a guy that owned an oil company, a Scottish guy. And he was bigger than life, larger than life, and but he couldn't get his goddamn kayak. They had lost his frickin' kayak. It was like a $14,000 or $15,000 kayak, and they lost the son of a bitch on the flight over. Come on. I'm not shitting you. The guy was going to take it to South Island, New Zealand, and the guy was going to go and do the rapids, right? Lost his frickin' kayak, man. So it's like, what do you do when you lose, your airline company loses $14,000 kayak, right? So he's sitting there smoking, and all of a sudden, the goddamn fire alarms go off in the hostel. And suddenly, and staff's coming in there, and you could smell, and they're like, are you guys smoking blah, blah, blah? They say, no, we don't know. It must be the next room or something. Anyway, fun times at the hostel in Holland. And there was this one guy that had lived there in the hostel for like 2 or 3 years. I don't remember if he was like staying on the same floor, or if like he'd move from time to time, or if they let him move. But everybody who stayed there very long, like I was there for 45 days. I was there for a month and a half. But this guy had lived his life in the hostel for 2 or 3 years. It's such a completely, totally different life, especially in New Zealand. Because when you're in New Zealand, like when I first land there and I go in the hostel first time, I'm in a mixed room. So actually the first night I was in there, there was nothing but girls in my room, man. There was like a couple of girls from Canada. I remember the girl from Canada. We were going to go out that night together. She was real hip on getting with an American guy, being from Canada and all that. And she's probably like 21, 23 or something. We were going to go down to the bar, get some drinks and stuff. But there was another girl there. I can't remember if she's from the States or from which. There's a lot of Europeans there. But, we were there, and that's when the girl pulled out that Goddess Terra, T-A-R-A, tarot deck. And I just had that Goddess Terra experience in Amsterdam. because I had flown after being in Amsterdam for a week, and I took the train down through Switzerland and so on down to Italy, and stayed a week in Rome, and then had flown over to New Zealand. And at the hostel in New Zealand, first night is where I run into the girl that had the goddess Terra tarot deck. And I'm totally like in total magical amazement, because I'm like, what a coincidence or synchronicity or power of consciousness or the might of thoughts or whatever, law of attraction, whatever you want to call it, subconscious mind, whatever. Because in Amsterdam, I had this incredible experience with magic mushrooms, where after taking the magic mushrooms, I go, I leave my hotel, because I bought it from this Jesus guy on the street. He looked like a little Jesus. He had the long straight hair, and he had this crazy little smile with this like rolled up mustache, because he was at the street cart on the street selling magic mushrooms. And I'm like, wow, because it was 20 grams fresh Mexican magic mushrooms. I'm like, oh, here's 20 euros. So I go back to the hotel room, and next day, I think it was maybe the next day, I take them, I go out, and it hits. I'm in the psychedelic magic mushroom museum. And nearby is Club 36. And so after that experience, it really hit me then. I hear this deep techno music, like, and I'm like, holy shit, wow, so magical experience. So I walk into Club 36. I buy some smoke, and I sit down, and there's the billiards table, and these guys are playing pool, and suddenly I feel like I'm in a waterfall. The whole room is a waterfall. The walls are water. I'm just energy. And I go like this, and it feels like water just slings off of me. And I take a drag up, and I'm watching these guys play pool. And so I go up to the tables up above me. And it says Facebook, Michael, you have 10 new notifications, 1 group update, 2 event invites, 1 friend. Okay. So I go up to the tables and decide to relax more and kind of get away from the billiard part of this Club 36. And I look over on the wall, and there is the goddess Terra. And it was the blue version here. Over there it was green in the New Zealand hostel. So there I am, and she's got like, I don't know, 8 arms or something. And suddenly, as the magic mushrooms kick in, more. She's like this. She's like this, right? And I'm sitting there like, it's like, and I'm communing with her, dude. I'm having this telepathic communication. Oh my God, I forgot the friends from India. Now they, and I don't mean any, listen, I don't mean any disrespect. I want to back up, because I know friends from India take this very seriously. I've got friends from India on my Facebook that have passed me very secret texts in the Tamil language, for example. I have friends from India that have invited me and offered me places to stay there. I have friends from India that have said that they read every single word that I write. So I do not mean any disrespect. I want to back up, because it's not about the goddess Terra. It's about the psychedelic mushroom, and that's what was funny, because I'm like, because at first, yeah, I was like, because she is, man, on the wall, and it was moving. She was like, what, can you imagine though? When you've got a goddess with 8 arms or 10 arms, come on, man, and she's like this, she's moving, dude. I mean, of course it was the magic mushrooms, but it was a real communion. It was a communication with, like, she was telepathically, she was communing with me. She was like mother nurturing. She was like mother rain. She was like mother earth, mother green, blue sky. She was nurturing. You know what the message was? The message was that I had some serious enemies. I had just flown in an emergency flight out of the Ukraine right after, sometime after the Orange Revolution. There was a very heavy thing that happened there. And so I'm like, I barely had anything. I lost everything back in the Ukraine. I landed there. I got the Chavez Guevara shirt on. I had no idea he was a total revolutionary and mass killer. So many things I learned since that time. But so I donned the Che Guevara shirt with the communist red star on it. I didn't understand what all that meant, and for me it was a joke anyways, being sarcastic. But here I am going through Amsterdam, and I have my little trendy shopping sack where I had bought some other touristy stuff. But there I am, and I'm in there, and I'm communing with the goddess Terra. And the message was, I am the mother of time, of all, throughout time. Not the mother of time, but I am the mother throughout time. I am the mother of earth, the mother of rain, the mother of all that is nurturing and good. And just like the rain and water can transform and run through your life, and like the tears that you may feel inside now of love separated and love lost in the past and things like this, is that you are eternal. And just like water transforms and flows throughout the body and the earth and the times in your life, so will I always be with you, and everything will be okay. All is going as it should be, even through tears and through rain, through sunshine, blue skies, and the night. Everything will be fine. And I just got this kind of message, this kind of vibe, this kind of assurance from this experience, or you could say from the goddess Terra. And she was just like, and you should go forth and complete your journey, finish your journey, everything will be fine. But it was so real because, it was like she and this real communion was going on. So I go back, and there's other parts of this trip that goes on for a while. I'll stop there, even though this is live video and I'm testing to see kind of how far I can go with this. Reasonably speaking, maybe another 20 minutes here. But anyway, I caught some kind of fever or something. Maybe it's something I ate. I don't know. Like I said, the trip went on for quite a long time after that. And I got back to the hotel. It was a little hotel room, and but I got some kind of flu or something. So I wrote my super doc. It was a research situation where we were dealing with like scalar wave magnetics, electromagnetic scalar wave radionics, and transmission of things over long distances, healing frequencies, elimination of viruses, bacteria, etc., etc. It's kind of a long story. But he's got a lab in Boston, and when I would travel, I would communicate with him. And Dr. Sutherland's got a page up on the goddess Terra, and I had no idea. He's a Buddhist, but he was a Top Gun pilot working and improving onboard U.S. Air Force flight computer systems in Vietnam. The U.S. Air Force. So here I am, I'm right in Sutherland. I'm like, hey man, I got some kind of virus or bacteria or whatever. What do you think? Can you transmit some stuff and target me in? And I said, listen, I had this experience with Goddess Terra, or with this. I described it. I didn't even know the name. He's the one that sent the link, and I'll try to put this link up below in it if I can find it, because he's a Buddhist. Because obviously he spent time in Southeast Asia. So he became a Buddhist, and he sent me this link, and he said a lot of my clients have an experience with the goddess Terra. And I was mind blown. I'm like, oh, come on. Left Amsterdam that week. Took a train through Switzerland, down to Italy, stayed another week, went to New Zealand. First roommate, 2 or 3 girls. She pulls out a tarot deck, and it's the goddess Terra. Very, very magical experience. So my friends from India, they have sent me secretly texts, information, knowledge, occult texts in the Tamil language. They have friends that say, we read every word you write. We read every word you write on Facebook. And they're interested in my predictions, and they give me some of their secret predictions and things like this. And what an amazing experience. So right now I'm going to have to close it down. So this is how I'm learning, because you know what I didn't realize? I'm now less than 15% on the battery. So there you go. So if I'm out covering some event somewhere in the world, home, here, wherever, God knows I've been in Russia, Ukraine, Panama, Switzerland, Italy for longer or shorter periods of time. New Zealand, as I just mentioned. If I'm using this type of live stream on this device or another device, I'll have to remember, if it goes on very long, that the battery checks. It's something that I'm usually pretty good at, but right now I'm at less than 15%, so I'm going to close it down. But it's a beautiful day here at the park, and after the fresh rain stopped, looks like they have some concerts here. They got a small concert area, or it looks like it's set up for live music. So, but about that experience in New Zealand, I'll try to finish up. I could lose battery anytime though. I was so amazed because I go out on the street in Auckland, and this is beyond the hostel and the girl that had the Goddess Terra tarot deck. And there's like 21 or 22 cards, naturally, with the major arcana. I think Goddess Tarot deck you can find on Amazon. But she had it, and we went over it. Anyways, my whole experience with the Goddess Terra was just incredible. But she had a whole deck with each card was on this Goddess Terra. So I'm out on the street one day in Auckland, New Zealand, and there's this Hare Krishna guy, Asian guy. There's a lot of Asians in New Zealand, of course, in Auckland. A lot. In fact, there's so many, there's like 15 seafood places. In this one place, you turn up in the street, you walk off the street, and there's 15 different, all seafood, Asian seafood. Just all kinds of Asian seafoods. You can't believe, and many, many people from Japan there too. So, I'm walking down the street, the Hare Krishna guy stops me, and he starts telling me, in Western spirituality, they study for the religion, Christianity, this, that, the other, and, it's kind of like, he's talking to me like it's inferior, right? He tells me about these guys over in Southeast Asia or over in the East, about Hare Krishna, about how some of their monks, they go into the cave, and after 3 or 4 years of deep meditation, daily meditation, they come out, they've got spiritual enlightenment. And he wants me to buy these books, man, or take these books on Hare Krishna. And I'm listening to him kind of minimize Western religion and Western spirituality. And I got him to a stopping place. I said, listen, I just had a communion with the Goddess Terra. And I said, I'd known and planned for years I was going to have the chance to do real magic mushrooms. And I said, you know what? I said, for 20 euro and a half day in Amsterdam, I said, and after visiting the Magic Mushroom Museum, I said, I hear heavy techno music. I walk into Club 36. I said, I buy the best smoke in Europe. I go back and I sit down after watching a game of billiards, and to my right is the Goddess Terra. And I said, I had the most amazing communion in my life with this Goddess Terra there. And she's comforting me, and she's teaching me, and I understood in those moments, watching this billiards game, as the room turned into an eternal waterfall, and I became pure water, like pure energy. I said, I didn't think about being a spiritual being or that I'm an eternal spirit. I knew. I came to Gnosis. I had the experience. And I knew that no matter what enemies may be behind me in the country I had just left, that may be persecuting me, following me throughout this life or even in a future life, I said, I known at that moment I was pure spirit. I didn't think, I didn't believe, I didn't read, I knew. I had gnosis, and I had communion. And he just, and he understood something new about Western spirituality. And I said, 20 euro and 20 grams Mexican magic mushrooms fresh. And I said, I had enlightenment, spiritual gnosis. And that, my friends, is Western spirituality. Have a nice day. Love you all. Sweet dreams, wherever you are.